All right, so let's start. Where were you born? What's your story?
Beautiful. So I was actually born in the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union. I was born in the Ukraine
Hmm.
in a place called Poltava.
Okay. How
So
old are you?
so so I am 41 right now. So I was born in
Okay.
1982. So when the Iron Curtain fell in 1989, my family left. They left to Detroit.
Why Detroit?
So the way that it worked when the Iron Curtain fell, I don't know if you know much about it, but the bottom line is, first and foremost, the city where I was born, it was a big Jewish town about 100 years ago. Before the revolution, it's like 30-40% of the population was Jewish.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, like the Hamodia was founded there. There's a lot to talk about, but the bottom line
Hmm.
is when the Iron Curtain fell, the Jewish agency took everybody out of the Soviet Union to bring them to Eretz Israel. We didn't
Hmm.
know anything, so the stop was Austria. So we came to Vienna, and my everybody heard. And so the vast majority of the Jewish community, they all left at once. So my parents, my grandparents, they all grew up on Shalom Aleichem Street. It was changed after the revolution, but it was Mamash the Yidden were very close in my hometown. So we came to Vienna, and my family heard that it was harder in Eretz Yisrael, and it was easier to make a parnasa in America. So they said we want to go to America. So then we went to Italy, and we were they say stateless refugees. So we were waiting for sponsors, for somebody to sponsor us to come to America. So we were there for a couple of months. My father's side of the family, they were sponsored to come to New York, and we had somebody, a family friend, that sponsored us to come to Detroit. So that's how I ended up in
You decided
Detroit.
Detroit.
That's how I did. That's how I did.
Got it. How old are you?
That's how we came to Detroit. So I was 7 years old. I was seven
How many,
years old.
how many siblings do you have? You would have how many?
I I have a sister. That's it. Small family. Yeah,
I have one sister also. She younger than you?
she's younger than me. Yeah.
Nice. So what did your father do for like how did you survive in the Soviet Union financially? Your parents?
So my father back in the Soviet Union, he was an engineer. So he worked on construction projects, things of that nature. My grandmother, I mean, listen, I don't know what is good for publication or not. The bottom line is my grandmother worked in the black market. So
Mm.
my family, they were very well off. So my mother's side, so my grandparents, who I was raised by, they were very, very well off. She worked in the black market, buying and selling from Moscow down to the Ukraine. She used to travel a lot, things of that nature. It's unbelievable. We have no musig on what it means. One time, my grandparents got new tiles in their bathroom. The KGB showed up a couple days later, and they asked them, where did you get the tiles? How did you afford the tiles? One of their neighbors that they had over saw the tiles and informed on them. That was life back then. Hard for us to believe.
So did your parent when your parents moved to Detroit, they came with some money? They had some money?
No, we had nothing. We had 12. We came with $1,200. So
Why couldn't they take from they couldn't take any money out of Russia?
no, you couldn't take any money out of Russia. We would smuggle some things like in toothpaste and things of that nature. But the bottom line is they took all of your money. You had to renounce your citizenship. They gave you a whole drusha on the way out on how you're betraying the motherland. And that's it. We came with nothing. My dad came. We came. My dad. They bought a vacuum cleaner and they bought a very old car that for a few $100s, and that was it.
And you,
And my
and you
dad,
grew up
my
totally you grew up not from, right?
I grew up not from no.
Okay. So what did your father do for a living when he was here?
My father started working for $5 an hour in a moving company, and then he got a job working in a painting company, painting like residential houses. That
Right.
he then opened up his own company doing that, and then he became very, very matzliach until he started, he owned a company and he did very high-end residential home painting.
Paint,
That was his
really?
career, and he spent some time as a builder as well, some residential houses that he built for a little bit, but that was the vast majority of what he did.
You still alive, your father?
My father's alive, yeah, Baruch Hashem.
Very nice. Still works?
No. He just stopped.
And his company was going till recently?
His company's been going till recently. My uncle is still there. He's still dealing with it. And yeah, listen, dude, I come from a family. Yidden are hard workers. My grandfather came over with us, and he was already by that time well into his. I think he was probably maybe 45 to 50, and he worked on the assembly line, assembling cars into his mid 70s until they kicked him out and gave him a pension to get out of there because he wouldn't stop working.
That's great. What's your father's first name?
Igor.
Nice. So describe your life growing up in Detroit, not from what you went to public school. What happened?
So what happened was, so I very, very much became very Americanized very quickly. Because in the Midwest, it's not like New York. In New York, you can keep a unique identity from whatever community you come from. If you move to the Midwest, people have American flags. They go to the army, things of that nature. So we moved to the main Frum community, to the Jewish community in Oak Park, it's called. And then my parents saved a couple dollars and they moved out. So we moved out. So I grew up in West Bloomfield, a place called West Bloomfield. So I had the Jewish connection I had. Listen, we always knew we were Yidden, of course, and I had a bar mitzvah. I had a shliach, Rabbi Yosef Mishalovin from Free Michigan. He learned the Aleph Beis with me, and I had a bar mitzvah in fifth grade in public school. They had a release time, so we had a Lubavitcher Rabbi Zaklis. They used to come. We were wild kids. We were out on the streets. Our parents were just trying to survive. They didn't have so much time for us, and we were wild. And he came and he taught us the Aleph Beis, and he had me spend the Shabbos over there at his house, and he taught me Kriya Shema. Can you imagine? So I was a little Jewish boy in fifth grade. So from that day on, I used to say Kriya Shema every night. I used to say Shema Yisrael through all of my travels and trials and tribulations. So I played sports growing up. I then went to Michigan State University.
Wait, you went what's on elementary and high school? You went to regular public school?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I went to Michigan State University.
Okay.
I was the president of my fraternity house, of my frat house at Michigan State. I spoke at the Or Sameach dinner. So they titled it For Fraternity to Eternity. It's pretty good, right? So
I like that. What did you fraternity to eternity? What did you go for? What was your degree? What were you going for?
So listen, dude, I'm like every Yid. I wanted to change the world, right? So I was international relations. I was very into politics. In fact, if I didn't become Frum, I was going to be into lobbying. I was going into lobbying in Washington, D.C. I spent a couple summers there, one at Georgetown and one at George Washington. So I was at a place called James Madison College at Michigan State University. It's a small honors program for the politically oriented.
Were you entrepreneurial as a teenager? Did you do any business? Were you an asking?
No. I have to be honest with you. I never grew up loving money, wanting money, caring about money. I wanted to change the world, man. I think that's why Hashem blessed me with business, because he needs people that have an open hand to lift up others and don't think of themselves first.
I hear. What do you mean you want to change the world? What does that mean? Where do you think
So in other words, look, I was very idealistic, very politically involved. And look, I spent one summer on Capitol Hill. I spent one summer at the United States Department of Commerce in a division that fostered trade between the former Soviet states and America.
Again, what to a now-from teenager, change the world means to do what? What did you want to accomplish?
I wanted through politics, I wanted to make the world a healthier place, a better place. That's what it means through political institutions, right? So So I spent the summer at Georgetown. I then went to law school in Detroit as well, at Wayne State University Law School, where
So why decide you want to become a lawyer? Why decide you want to become a lawyer?
but I think that's what a nice Jewish boy does, and I didn't want to grow up. So I said law school was my natural outlet. So people that don't go, people from a political orientation, that's like a very natural next progression for them to go to law school. And then I was going to try to figure it out.
Okay.
So
You went to law. You wouldn't know exactly, right?
no, I didn't know what I was going to do. So then I went back to George Washington this time, and I was at the Anti-Defamation League in Washington D.C. because I was starting to be a little bit, a little Jewish identity waking up.
Right. Okay.
I was very involved in civil rights work. We had a civil rights clinic in law school. That was the only thing that spoke with me, where we were suing the city of Detroit Police Department for some excessive use of force cases, things of that nature. And listen, and I finished law school. And
How old did you finish law school?
I was relatively young. I was 2007, so I was 25 years old.
Okay, nice. And when did you get married?
I got married, so that's a whole myself. So first of all, listen, some of this stuff off the record, I was a very wild guy. So we used to promote very big parties, hundreds of people with famous DJs in law school. I had my law school professors coming to them. I'm like a very social, extreme individual. So the bottom line is, I didn't know what I was gonna do. I was gonna go backpack in Thailand. I was
Like any typical Jew.
I was applying to officer training school in the United States Army because I had a car Sato for America. So I wanted to give back.
Why?
I was grateful to the United States. I had a car Sato. So so while I was in the process of doing that, I had an Israeli roommate in law school, and
You had what in law school?
I had an Israeli roommate.
Yeah, okay.
And he went to a wedding. He had a friend of his that became from through some program at the University of Michigan. I was living in Ann Arbor at that point, at the University of Michigan. So and he saw a rabbi there, Rabbi Eisenman from Passaic. He used to run the University of Michigan Mayor. You've heard of Mayor? Rabbi Gershenfeld?
Rabbi Ron Eisenman?
His name's Rabbi. So Rabbi Gershenfeld is the one that is the head of it. But Rabbi Eisenman ran it at the University of Michigan for many years, and now he's at NYU here.
Okay.
So my buddy comes back and he tells me, I saw my old rabbi and he told me about this program in Israel. I know you're planning on traveling. Perhaps you should look into it. At the same time, my third year in law school, I asked myself, what's the tachlis? The physical pleasure was not, I was a wild guy. I was enjoying life, thank God. But I saw that there was no tachlis. There was no fulfillment. So I said, there has to be something deeper. So I asked a friend of mine, do you remember how to put on tefillin? So in my third year in law school, I started reading Jewish books, things of that nature. And I dusted off my tefillin. And then my roommate told me about this rabbi. I called up the rabbi. The rabbi asked me, he said, is your mother Jewish? Is your grandmother Jewish? I said, yeah. So he said, fine, go online, fill out this form, and then you can go to this program. So I showed up. It's funny. I said this story. I get into the little Sheirut, whatever it is, the little car to go from the airport to Yerushalayim, and I sit down with all these bachurim in black hats, and I'm wearing an Israeli soccer jersey, these ripped jeans, and I had a buzzed head. I'm not wearing a yarmulke. So they asked me, where are you going? I said, I'm going to this place called Or Sameach. Have you ever heard of it? So they said, yeah, of course. Wow, very fancy. So I said, where are you guys going? Listen, I'm a social guy. I'm schmoozing with these guys. So they said, we're going to the Mir Yeshiva. Have you ever heard of the Mir? So I said, no, I've never heard of the Mir. What's the Mir? So these guys were like dumbfounded that there was somebody in the world who had not heard of the Mir Yeshiva. In these guys' world, everybody knew of the Mir. So I came to Or Sameach. I didn't know what program I was going to be in, nothing like that. I rolled in my bags, and I started putting on tefillin the first week I was there. And the following day, I went out with my roommate, whatever it is. We were walking out somewhere getting something to eat. And he bumped into a friend of his that he knew from like an Asia Torah trip, whatever it is, a girl who was studying at Neve. And I was standing next to him while he was speaking, and the girl that he knew had a friend next to her. So that ended up me meeting my wife. So a day after I started putting on tefillin, I met my wife in Yerushalayim. So my wife grew up traditional. She's Sephardi. She's Bukharian. She grew up in Queens. So I was just beginning my journey. But listen, I do not try this at home. A lot of what I'm telling you, do not try this at home. But the bottom line is, she gave it a shot.
No,
So
just one question. You told me that earlier. You said you wanted to maybe put on tefillin, right?
I was thinking about it. I was trying to figure out when to start, how to do it, when to do it. So I got it from my house. I know I had a pair.
You didn't put it on. Oh, good. Number one. The second thing, actually, is very important. You said you were a wall guy. What do you mean you were throwing parties? What does that mean? Throwing parties.
I was a promoter. We were putting on big parties, flying in big DJs. I don't want to say it, but like October 7th in Israel, like like these techno
sure.
and house music.
And you were making money. You were making money of this.
I was making money just to pay some bills in law school.
That's entrepreneurial.
One of them we even called keeping it kosher. My clientele was Jewish mostly, like 80% Jewish.
So that's entrepreneurial.
A little bit, but it was more of my buddies. My buddies always had like an entrepreneurial spirit, like my Israeli buddy and my other buddy Jordan. Funny enough, I'm the only one that owns a business right now. These guys never did anything of that nature, but yeah. So that's where I was.
Well, those guys never finished law school?
No, of course he did. My law school roommate's a very chashuv guy, very chashuv an attorney, but he works in a firm. He never started his own business.
No. The second time you said, I think it's a good you said. You said you're a wild guy, and afterwards, it's very important you said, I think, to tell from people, FFBs, because everyone has a style. You know what? I know I'm married, but I'm gonna go and have sex with every girl I meet, and then life will be better. But Lamaisa, there's an emptiness to it, obviously, and it's important to point that out. That after you try all the things, then you feel empty, and then you search. I think it's good to talk about that. All right, let's get back to this. So you said, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so no, I mean it's a good insight. It's a very important thing that people recognize. I think it's
1,000%.
All right, so that you finished. You're in Or Sameach. This is in between law school. Like, what does it mean? You finished law school? Or was it?
I already finished law school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm there. I come for a 2-week program. I end up staying. I met my wife pretty much right away. She was on a trip to Neve. She grew up, traditional. Her parents were Bali Tshuva when she was already a teenager. And I met a very special person at Or Sameach. His name. So I said to her, what's the big deal? I'll wear a kippah, I'll wear tzitzis. So she's like, no, you don't understand. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to Yiddishkeit, to Judaism than that. So the bottom line is, I met a very special person at Or Sameach. His name was Rabbi Paul Laster, Olav Shalom. He had been he's a famous story in Yerushalayim, but the bottom line is he was not from. He came. He was in the IDF. They put him in the educational corps to educate the IDF on why they're fighting, to give them motivation, to make them stronger. And he ended up coming to Or Sameach, and he ended up bringing guys to Or Sameach, and he ended up becoming from. He learned in Kolo for 30 years at Chafetz Chaim in Yerushalayim. I think his Rosh Yeshiva was Rabbi Chait. He was a Talmud of Reb Chaim Brim, Talmud Muvak of the Chazon Ish. So in the afternoons he would come and he would learn with a couple guys at Or Sameach. So they put me in a class. So I learned with him, and they gave me my own Hebrew, to relearn the Aleph base. I was doing a little bit faster than the rest of the class, so they gave me my own guy. He happened to be a lawyer as well.
This Rabbi Paul Laster knew the Chazon Ish, he said?
He was a Talmud of Reb Chaim Brim. Reb Chaim Brim was the Talmud Muvak of the Chazon Ish. So
Yeah,
his Rebbe was Reb Chaim Brim. Yeah.
I met Reb Chaim Brim. I'm not sure he was a Talmud of the Chazon Ish, but either Reb Chaim Brim
No,
himself was a big man.
Yeah.
No, but he was a big man. He was a big man himself. I met him. All right, so you went to Paul Laster, and he was teaching you what? You gotta learn.
So we opened up a Gemara. I started learning, and I said, Rabbi, I don't even know the ABCs. I don't know the foundations of Judaism. You're telling me I'm learning Talmud. So he said, so he had a great smile. He said, Alex, this is the way that we do it. The bottom line is the months went on, and I wasn't in the ordinary curriculum of Or Sameach. I was a little bit older. I needed to do my own thing. What I would do is I was learning the Aleph base. I was learning Gemara with Rabbi Laster, and I was reading Rabbi Victor Miller's Farm, and I was going through Tanakh myself. And after a couple of months of learning with this man, I said to myself that I don't know if any of this is true. I don't know if any of this is true, but if I could be like this individual,
One second. You hear me?
Yeah. Where'd I cut off?
No, I just got cut off. We're still here. So I just want to get this. So he said you started learning Gemara with him. Yeah.
So I was learning Gemara. I was learning Aleph base, and I was reading Rabbi Victor Miller's Farm and going through Tanakh. And after a few months, I said to myself, I don't know whether any of this is true, Torah and mitzvahs, but if I could be like this person, like Rabbi Laster, he was a walking, breathing Sefer Torah, the Midos. He was a very, very special person. Then I said, it's all Kedai. Then it's all worth it to kind of start the journey.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's what happened. It actually also happened to be 2008 back then. So I came back. I was there for 3-4 months. I came back. I took the New York bar exam. I got engaged to my wife. We got married, and then we went back to Eretz Yisrael, to Or Sameach, for 6 months. Happens to be 2008, 2009. It was the worst time to be an attorney. It was like a crash, economic crash. There were no lawyer jobs. I couldn't find a job for $50,000. Nobody would hire me. Nobody would hire. So I lived in my in-laws' basement for the first 6 months after we came back from Eretz Yisrael. We spent the first 6 months of marriage in Eretz Yisrael. Then we came back. For the first 6 months, I lived in my in-laws' basement. I couldn't find a job.
I love that. No, I love that because, again, I'll just tell you what happened yesterday. I know when I called Ami, the editor. I'm like, listen, I want to feature. He's like, oh, lawyer, we can't do a lawyer. It's not entrepreneurial. It's a degree. So I said, listen to me. I said, statistics are less than 1% of all lawyers have their own firm. By the way, that's actually the statistics according to the ABA. Yeah, oh, wow. Less than 1%. And I said, and what I saw a study in Chicago was that 60% of all lawyers work in firms 1 to 10 people. So Pi Seichel, that means, right, that have all lawyers that start their own firms, yeah, 40% of that have firms bigger than 10, which means 0.04% of all lawyers do what you do, which is not a large amount. So right. That's obviously entrepreneurial. So anyways, but I like what I was saying, but the point is, you're saying you were struggling as a lawyer. That's chashiv. That shows, hey, not everything is all works out. You know what I mean?
1,000%. So I was looking for a job, ended up getting a job, and I worked at a firm. I started out handling injury cases, workers' compensation cases, work injury cases.
Which law firm you started?
It was called the Harris Law Group. Okay. It was like a distant cousin of my wife's, whatever it is. They gave me a shot. So I was there, and then I started growing very, very quickly. I was very good at it. What I found was much more than education. Education just gives you a degree. But my ability to form relationships, to develop relationships, to socially interact with all sorts of people, and to connect with them, that really allowed me to be very, very successful at my job. And that means relationship building with clients, with my adversaries, with the attorneys from the insurance companies, things of that nature. So the bottom line is, listen, I had it in my blood. My father's always owned his own business his whole life. And, so after 4 years, I made, I was a partner there. I was running one of the offices. And I said at that juncture to my wife, we have $27,000 in savings after 4 years of working. We can either buy a house right now, or I can open up a law firm. But if we buy a house, I'm not going to be able to open up a law firm for a long time. So she said, go for it.
How could you open a law firm with $27,000? What does that mean? Who are you going to hire?
So it's interesting. So my wife's mother was actually in the Twin Towers on 9/11. She, Baruch Hashem, made it out alive. She worked at Blue Cross Blue Shield on the 27th floor, and she made it out. And after that day, she never went back to Manhattan, and she opened up a flower shop. So she does weddings. She's very, very big in the Sephardi community in Queens, chasanas, whatever it is. But Mamish took over her whole life. It enveloped her whole life. So my wife understood what it meant to run a business and the sacrifices that she would have to make as a wife and as a mother to kind of get this off the ground and make it matzliach. So,
okay, good, but that's great. But you didn't answer my question. How do you start a law firm with $27,000? It's not enough money. What does that mean?
So I'll tell you what I did. I had my own clients. I had 30 of my own personal referrals, my personal clients that I took with me, and I sublet a small hole in the wall office. I got the desk from some motivational speakers who were moving out of the space for like $200. And then I started working. I started running around, and I started forming relationships with people that could send me work. Medical offices, law offices.
So let's clarify. What were you were doing? The workers' comp or personal injury? That was your
So to start out, I was a workers' compensation law firm. So when people are injured at work, say you're in a construction accident, or you're somebody, if a person's injured at work, he's entitled to medical treatment, he's entitled to benefits while he's out of work, he's entitled to a settlement even if he doesn't miss work on any permanent damage he has in his body. And it's a contingency business, so I only get paid at the end. We get small fees intermittently, but it's like an administrative process. It's not a lawsuit. So that's how I started the law firm, the workers' compensation portion of the law firm. I was running around, and remember what I told you, I'm very good at at relationship building from my prior life. So what I did is I started meeting a lot of people like me. They started sending me business. The firm started growing exponentially. I didn't have money to pay anybody. I think 1 or 2 months into the firm, I hired a part-time secretary, and I used to have to send her home, for whatever it is, $10, $12 an hour. I used to send her home at 1 o'clock because I couldn't afford to pay her for a full 40-hour week. We then started growing. I know the business because I've been in it for 4 years. I have relationships with insurance companies. So I had people in the lawyers for the insurance company. They were trying to help me out. They were trying to settle cases with me. They were trying to help me get going, right? Because I was.
But you said when you settle, it says administrative. It's simply filling out paperwork. Workers' comp.
Well, no, it's an administrative process, but there's a judge, and there's an insurance company that pays out claims. So the insurance company hires lawyers to represent them and defend them. So that was my whole life. So that was my whole life for 4 years while I was at the prior firm. I was learning the whole system, learning the law, learning who.
Basically, you try to get more money for your clients. Basically,
we try to get money for our clients, money and medical treatment when somebody's injured at work.
And insurance obviously tries to deny it. They don't want to pay.
And insurance denies it, and they minimize it, and they do all sorts of things to make sure not to pay out.
So what was your skill? How did you pull up to get more money?
So again, very, very simple. I had relationships with attorneys who were helping me to settle the cases that I had, and that was because I make it a very good. I make it a very great point to me to be respectful to everybody I speak with, And you know what I said? What I said to Hashem on day number one is, I'm gonna be a Kiddush Hashem, and I'm gonna do this the right way. If I could do this in a kosher way, then please help me. And if I can't do it in a kosher way, then I'll go work for an insurance company. And it'll be fine, and I'll survive, and I'll move forward. And Hashem helped me. Listen, so I formed relationships with a lot of people in the medical field, a lot of different law firms. They liked me. They started sending me work. So I started growing exponentially. So I started signing up hundreds of cases. So about 6 months after, I went to a networking event, and I met somebody that was sending me business at the time. He asked me to speak with a young guy who was going to go out on his own as well. And I spoke with him for a few minutes, and I brought him, and I called him up the next day. I said, come into my office at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I told him, listen, I'm going to build an empire. I need somebody to run with me. I'm already growing like crazy. There's 3 skills that are going to be necessary for success. Number 1, it's going to be a lot of hard work. Number 2, we're going to have integrity, and we're going to have ethics, the way we conduct business. And number 3, we're going to relationship build. And my partner, JJ Hill, jumped on board. Instead of opening up his own law firm, he jumped on board with me.
At the time, you had any employees besides the secretary?
So what happened was, so listen, so I had a lot of Yidden. I had a lot of old Yidden, not from, that wanted to help me out. Like 67, like 50, 60, 70-year-old super successful guys that wanted to do like a mitzvah, like the Pintel Yid.
Lawyers?
So,
ex-lawyers?
No, not lawyers. These were people usually in the medical field. So,
Okay.
so when I had this part-time secretary, I had a guy that I met. He said, you know what? I can't help you, but I know somebody that could possibly help you. And he called a guy who ran a very big advertising brand firm, whatever it is. This guy was originally from Israel, but he lived in Mexico. And he had a very large Spanish advertising brand. So he said, Alex, my friend called me up. I want to come meet you. So he comes into my office and he starts laughing at me. And he said, Alex, I don't work with people like you. I said, what do you mean? He said, Alex, we work with large law firms, with 20, 30, 40, 50 lawyer law firms. You have a desk and a computer. There's nobody here. You have this girl that's here for half a day. You have nobody that speaks Spanish, which are all the clients that I could send you. So I said, listen to me. I said, listen to me. Give me a chance. And I promise you, 5, 10 years down the road, you're going to say that I was your most successful client that you've ever had. So he said like this to me. He said, Alex, when I was young in business, somebody told me that you have to strike while the iron is hot. I'm going to give you a chance, but you better strike while the iron is hot. So I said, when can you send me my first client? So he said, as soon as you have somebody that speaks Spanish. So the next day I hired somebody that spoke Spanish. And then we started signing up hundreds of cases. For this,
you hired a lawyer, a secretary. Who'd you hire?
I hired. I think the first hire was a newly admitted lawyer. She didn't last for so long. Then I hired like a paralegal, Spanish speaking paralegal.
Gotcha.
And
so when your friend JJ came, how did he work in the company?
So when my friend JJ came, the two of us were doing the same thing. We were
how many people in your company? How many were in your company when he came up? Nobody, or you had some people?
There were 3 people. There was me. It was the Russian girl, my first employee, and a Spanish woman. 3 of us.
Gotcha. You made the JJ. He's from Jew. What's his story?
No, he's not. He's not from.
You made him equal partner of the business.
Yes, he became an equal partner. I retained control really over the decision making, but equal partner, referable to that, 50-50.
Okay, gotcha. So you brought the JJ fine, and now you're building a business together, focusing on what?
Focusing on workers' compensation injuries only, work injuries only. We start growing exponentially.
How do you get clients? How are you getting clients?
So we're getting clients through word of mouth. Our clients are referring clients to us because we're treating them like family. We're getting a lot of repeat clients from our old clients. We're getting clients from medical offices. We're getting clients from lawyers. And that's how we started. So we started signing up
Again,
hundreds of, yeah.
how what lawyers are sending you in
So I'll tell you like
cases?
this.
Why? Because they don't handle that.
Exactly. So workers' compensation is a very niche practice. There are not many people, even in a place like New York, that are top of the line experts at workers' compensation. It's a very intricate, very complicated laws. You have to be very good at it. And it's an administrative process. It's a government entity. So in other words, there's a lot of hurdles to overcome to be good at your job. And a lot of personal injury firms. So let's say a personal injury firm who handles car accidents. They'll handle a car accident, but they won't handle if somebody fell off of a chair at work or somebody had a cabinet fall on them at work, as an example. So those law firms would send clients to me to handle the workers' comp cases for them.
I got it. But so you said you did some personal injury as well. Who sent you those cases?
So yeah, just step by step. So the bottom line is we started growing and we started signing up hundreds of cases, which became thousands of cases. We started building offices, our office expansions. By the time we finished building our next office, we needed another office because we were growing so fast. We started hiring many employees. But the bottom line is a lot of our workers' comp cases. So let's say if somebody calls me and they work for New York City Department of Transportation, and they're like they're putting up signs on the side of the road or doing road work, right? And let's say that they're driving and they get hit by another car. So that type of a case, there's a workers' compensation case there because they were working. And in addition to that, you can also sue a third party. You can sue the driver that hit you. So you have two cases. You have a workers' compensation case and you have a personal injury case. So in 2017, so the law firm opened in 2013. In 2017, 4 years in, we had thousands of cases and we were fast becoming one of the top workers' compensation law firms. We started seeing that we were referring out to personal injury law firms a lot of cases that were coming from our clients. So then we did something that no other law firm had done. We went from being one of the main personal injury law firms to, one of the main workers' compensation law firms to entering the personal injury space. To then and then we started doing that. And then we went from, we had very exponential rises. We had 20 employees, then we went to 30 employees. And then our personal injury practice started growing exponentially. So this was from 2017 to 2020, right? Go.
2021.
Then in 2020 with COVID, we had to make a decision. So first and foremost, you have to understand that I'm just going to be very, very honest with you. I demand accountability. In other words, whatever I demand of my employees, I demand much more of myself. But the people that work for me, especially our leadership, they have to be accountable. They have to be big people. We give them, we're a microcosm of New York City. Anybody can have an opportunity in America. Anybody gets an opportunity here with experience, without experience. And there's no glass ceiling. In other words, you go as high as you can go. And people have done tremendously well. They've accomplished more than they've ever thought they could accomplish and made more money than they ever thought they could make. However, in tandem with that is you have to be responsible and you have to be accountable. So and we hold people to those standards. So COVID starts and all of a sudden the world is panicking. Everybody's freaking out. Everybody's going crazy. I sat at my house for a week and a half and then I was like, I forget this. I'm not doing this. I'm out. So, 800 people were dying a day in New York. I was driving around. I was by myself driving in the streets coming into our office. So because I demand accountability first and foremost for myself. So at that juncture, my partner actually, he wanted to cut operations. He wanted to go to a skeleton operation to try to survive and to try to manage. What I conveyed to him is that we have a responsibility and I have a responsibility to the people in my office. I don't use any external factors as an excuse to cut the fat from the office. And that's what a lot of companies did, by the way, in COVID. They used it as an excuse to get rid of a bunch of underperformers, a bunch of people with problems, a bunch of people for political reasons. I have very high standards of what success means in my law firm, but at the same time, I have tremendous loyalty. So if you're one of my soldiers and you're a producer, I told him we're not using COVID as an excuse to get rid of people. In fact, we're going to go twice as hard. We're going to go pedal to the metal, and we're going to push through. So at the beginning of COVID, we had I believe we had 35 employees. So COVID closed personal injury court, and it's still closed to a large extent. It's opening, it's quasi-open 50-70%.
I didn't hear you.
I said in personal injury, COVID closed the courts because everything was in-person appearances. So
Correct.
And they're only open right now like 50-70%. Like they're not fully back up and open the way they used to be. However, workers' compensation, they went virtual like 3 to 6 months before COVID started. All hearings became virtual, which means that there was a disruption, but it was a relatively minimal disruption in terms of hearings, because I need hearings to get paid, right? Which is why it's very, very important to diversify practice areas in the law and in every other business. You see here the most explicit manifestation of that. In other words, our workers' compensation business suffered a little bit, but it bounced up relatively quickly because the hearings weren't affected. Whereas if I was a personal injury law firm and that was my only revenue stream and revenue source as the business was growing in the personal injury department, it would have been much more difficult for me. Right. So from 2020, when we had 35 employees, we started growing exponentially. We started getting bigger. So let's say like this, we're one of the main, I don't know how you want to say it, top 2, 3, 4, 5. We're one of the top workers' compensation law firms in New York City. And we started developing personal injury cases and signing up traumatic injury cases, catastrophic injury cases. We specialize in construction accidents, commercial motor vehicle accidents, and very serious premises trip and fall cases. And we started signing up heavier and heavier cases. And what we ended up seeing is in workers' compensation, we are a community-driven practice in the sense that we help individuals. And because we help the community, and we treat every case like it's $1 million case. The case could be worth $1 million, it could be worth $5, but every case is treated the same. It's worth to us $1 million in our eyes. People are treated like they're $1 million. That allows us to have a very big foothold in the community. So we've handled in 10 years 18,000 cases. So we have a lot of loyalty built up through our current clients. Some clients got money, some did not on their initial cases. But what I convey to clients is that we act as an insurance policy for them in case that their health deteriorates, in case that a workers' compensation injury becomes more severe. We're here for them and to help them push forward, right? So in personal injury, we handle only big cases. Like traumatic cases, injury cases, construction cases. So in the personal injury practice is catered towards bigger cases. The workers' compensation practice is a more community-driven practice. In 2021, we also added a civil rights practice. So
how do you find clients?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. You're not here. I can't hear you.
Okay.
I hear you now. Say that again.
You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now. Yeah.
So a personal injury, they have to find you when someone gets hurt. How do you get? In other words, so many people are begging for a buck. That's how do you find these people?
So the clients are found a number of ways. First and foremost, we are a client-generated business, which is really the bread and butter of how any business should run. is that your existing clients should be referring other clients. That's the simon. That's the strength of a business. If you are a business that exclusively relies on advertising, that's a very, very problematic situation unless you're operating at a top scale with endless advertising budget. Because like, I'll give you an example. I spoke with a big competitor of ours, and what they conveyed to me is, I asked them, how much of your business comes from clients? And they said nothing. I said, where do you get all your clients? So they said advertising. So I said to them, oh, that's not a smart way to run your business. That tells me that you do not cater to your clients the way they need to be catered to, because they're not referring their friends to you.
So you're right, but you're talking about friends who know friends who got injured, type of thing. It's a
correct,
a unique aspect.
Correct, which is no, it's not unique. It's more common in your world. It's unique because you're a from Yid. But if you were a correction officer working in a prison where there's assaults every 3 days and there's altercations, there's a lot of injuries that occur there. If you work for a psychiatric ward guarding psychiatric people, there's a lot of injuries there. If you're a nurse in a hospital, there's a lot of lifting injuries there. If you're a construction worker, there's a lot of injuries there. 80 to 85% of injuries do go unreported. And I will want to convey one thing to you. However you want to deal with it, you don't have to bring it up. But I see a lot in my business, a lot of Hillel Hashem, quite honestly, because you have from owners of businesses. When we speak about ethics and obligations, there's been an awakening these last 2 months, right? With all these things that have happened in Israel. There's been an awakening. And really what we need to do is small acts of kindness, as many of them as possible. That's really what's going to turn the tide. So starting with treating the people around you with respect and dignity, and to raise them up. What I see a lot is business owners, okay? Specifically, I hate to say it, but in our community, but all communities, that when somebody is injured on the job and it's a severe, like we specialize in construction accidents. You have serious construction accidents. A lot of the laborers are immigrant laborers from various countries. A lot of them are Hispanic. There's a lot of people trying to prevent claims, trying to bury claims under the table, trying to disavow that people work for them, trying to minimize the accident. Going to the hospital, it's saying that you found this guy on the street and he fell on his bicycle, saying that people are going to get deported if they open up cases. Things of this nature are very, very prevalent.
Right.
And unfortunately, this is something that needs to be dealt with. I mean, I have to be very honest with you. If a person wants to build a strong business, you're only as strong as the people that work for you. And yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. You need soldiers in your business. The way to cultivate soldiers is by showing loyalty to your soldiers. And the way to show loyalty is to treat them with respect and raise them up. And if God forbid something happens and one of your employees is injured at a construction site, you better do everything you can to help facilitate his recovery. And that doesn't mean that he has to stay out of work, but that means that he needs to get access to the best physicians. He needs as few problems as possible with insurance companies.
I think you're saying also an interesting angle. Tell me if I'm wrong in regards to suing. I think it's actually logical what you're saying. In that, people, especially, I guess, couple this with the 80 to 85% unreported thing that you said. A majority of people who are injured just want to get healed, right? They're not interested necessarily in suing somebody. And you're saying a very good word. You're saying, Adarabba, if you go, I think that's what you're saying. I think it's a smart advice. If you go and help the person to the best of your ability to try to make sure that they're healed and they get even, let's say, workers' comp, which is not you being sued, it's simply your insurance, generally speaking, right? So if you get your workers' comp and they get paid, right? And they get healed, much less a chance they'll sue you as well. Besides the fact you're saying
I'll tell you like this. Do you know how many cases I've had? I just settled a case last week for $1.75 million.
Wait. Let's kind of accurate what I just said or no?
It's almost accurate. So I'll
Okay.
tell you like this. It is accurate. The general you sold is very accurate. In other words, I settled the case for $1.75 million just now. I have
Okay.
cases that settle for millions of dollars. Do you know why they start? They start because there was somebody that fell off of a scaffold and they almost completely died. And the boss refused to pay out 2 weeks vacation time while they wanted 2 weeks off. And then these clients came to a lawyer and they said, my boss is trying to screw me. He's not paying me 2 weeks vacation time. I don't even want to, I didn't even want to pursue a case. But now because this guy is not being upfront with me and he's trying to minimize my injuries and not trying to help me, I'm now going full throttle. I will tell you like this, just so you understand the general you sowed. If you have a big construction site, you have subcontractors. A lot of the employees that get injured are those subcontractors. So even though the subcontractor's employee gets workers' compensation, there's a second lawsuit. There's a personal injury lawsuit against the general contractor and against the owner of the building.
But fine, but again, so then the same you said applies to the subcontractor. With his employee, they want whatever.
Correct. What people do, because people are mom is shady, is they say, I don't want my insurance premiums to go up. And Lamaisa, I found this guy at Home Depot 2 weeks ago. So I'm just going to drop him off at the urgent care. I'm going to pretend that I don't know him, that he never worked for me. I was paying this guy cash. It's just very, very prevalent. Whereas it needs to be the exact opposite. It needs to be, I am taking responsibility for you. I am making sure that you're going to be back up on your feet, that you're going to get the medical treatment that you need. I'm going to treat you like a human being. And I guarantee you, number one, God is going to repay me many times over. And number two, it's going to make everybody else work that much harder. That should be the natural reaction.
You're saying that it's ethically. You're saying that your workers will work better and it'll cost you less long term because the chance of them suing you won't be as high. Okay, let's talk some general stuff about yourself a second for business. So there are, like I said, there are 1% of people start law firms, and many people where 67% of law firms are 5 to 10 people. You have 25 lawyers and 100 people big. What do you think is the key why you have to grow while others like? What's the key to success? Why you think you have to grow the business?
I think there's a number of answers for that. I'll tell you what I believe is the secret to our success. Okay, give me just one quick second. I'll pull up one thing. Give me one quick second. I think you have to be like this. Okay. First and foremost, we have a motto here. It's love people and demand high performance. Yeah. So I think there's a number of things that come into play when you're trying to scale a business. Number one, people have very high egos, and their high egos are a barrier to growing their business. As somebody I'm close with in business tells me, the cemetery is full of irreplaceable people. You know what that means? That means that people think that they're irreplaceable because they founded a company, or they think they need to be integrally involved in every facet of the operations of their company, and that they could do it better than everybody else. And you know what? It possibly is true, but that's also a big barrier to growing. To grow means that you have healthy ego. That means you know what your strengths are. That means you know what your deficiencies are. That means that you do not have to be the answer for every single question in the company. And one of the things that we've seen is when you have healthy ego, you minimize yourself. You're able then to cultivate big talent to come work for you, and then to develop that big talent to become management talent. And what I've seen through the years is that there are many people in my company that do most things better than I do them. But they could never have started a law firm. But in their certain purview of what they're doing, let's say I have an operations guy. The guy's tremendous in his operations purview. Tremendous. I have a guy that's focused on technology, AI, technological development. Tremendous. I have people that are focused on substantive litigation. Tremendous. You understand? What I'm doing here is I made the soup, right? There's many ingredients to the soup. And then I step back and I'm allowing all of those ingredients to interact with one another. And all I'm doing is I'm seasoning a little bit here, putting in a little bit salt, a little bit of pepper. I'm making some amendments with how much broth to put in, how much tomatoes to put in. You understand?
I would say another point you said I think is very, very interesting. I think it applies to a lot of businesses. You said, and I believe you believe it's one of your, you cited this, that one of the key reasons of your success, both as a lawyer or whether it's personal injury or whatever, is your ability to have relationships, including the opposite attorney, right? Which is interesting, right? Which means that, and since you said you would think in law, I'm curious, to what degree you think is the knowledge of the law, and what degree is the relationship building with quote unquote, let's call the judge or the other attorney? What do you think?
I'll tell you like this.
Yeah.
First and foremost, you have to have absolute subject matter expertise. You have to be an expert at your job, because without that, you can be the biggest schmoozer. You can take people out to reserve cut until you're blue in the face. If you are not if you're not an expert at what you do, it's going to be very difficult for you to become the biggest. Once you have that subject matter expertise, you have to understand that's good business. Being pragmatic is good business. Relationship building is good business. What I saw growing up in this game in law firms and lawyers is there are a lot of people that have a lot of animosity and they're very angry. They're angry individuals, and they think that they're going to achieve the best results for their clients through confrontation. That's what people think lawyers are: confrontational, argumentative, difficult. What we saw is we have to be pragmatic, and we're going to battle and we're going to fight for our clients, but you have to do it in a smart way. And you say that again?
I got a call. What you saw was what?
What I saw growing up was that a lot of lawyers are, quite honestly, angry, argumentative, difficult people,
Right.
and they think that that's how they're going to achieve the best results for their clients. What we've seen is we're advocates for our clients, and we're going to battle for them, and we're going to be soldiers for them. But you can be pragmatic at the same time. You can work things out with your adversaries to, at the end of the day, get a good resolution for your client. Because all we're looking for is to get the client. We want the client in and out of the system. We want them to move forward with their lives. We want them on the road to recovery.